ulit into two, no? Non-typhoidal salmonella, or abbreviated as NTS, or if not, Salmonella typhi. Okay, so non-typhoidal salmonella infections happen worldwide. Okay, particularly when standards of hygiene, sanitation, and availability of safe water and food preparation is a problem. The most common type, Salmonella enteritica enteritidis, and Salmonella enteritica typhimurium. So it's kind of, and who are the principal sources? Would be animals. Okay, principal sources of humans of non-typhoidal salmonella would be animals. Particularly poultry, di ba? Poultry and eggs. Traditionally, a common source, no, from poultry and eggs, but dogs, cats, reptiles, rodents, amphibians. Naku, merong mga bata dyan na who have amphibians as pets. But there are even other sources now, including contaminated fruits, contaminated food stuff. Fruits, vegetables, peanut butter, cereals, infant formulas. Even in the US, no, this becomes a problem. No? Or any food contaminated by contact with animal product or human. And how does it get transmitted? Ingestion of contaminated water, medications, dye, DYES, and medical instruments. It could be, it happens, no, that a patient in the hospital, no, can get this infection from a medically contaminated instrument, especially, and the ones at risk will be spread. Okay. Where do these NTS come from? Animal feeds. Alam mo feeds, pinapakain sa mga animals, supposedly contain bone meal or fish meal that gets contaminated with salmonella. So, how do animals that should be the point. How do animals get the bacteria? No, the animals get the bacteria from feeds that may contain fish or bone meal contaminated with it. And there are, we may have problems with antibiotic resistant salmonella. And this is because what is contributory to antibiotic resistant salmonella? Antibiotic resistant salmonella would be there is this practice of adding sub-therapeutic concentration of antibiotics to feeds. Nilalagyan pala ng antibiotic yung mga feeds, no? To promote growth. So, if that is, and because of that practice, no, the salmonella gets exposed to the antibiotic, and eventually that will lead to drug resistance. Okay, so antibiotic resistant salmonella in the gut flora of animals with subsequent contamination of their meat and consumption by humans is said partly due to subtherapeutic concentration of antibiotics added to this. Is what partly explains, no, why non-typhoidal salmonella, there's drug resistance with non-typhoidal salmonella as compared to salmonella typhi. So clinically, the most common manifestation will be as an acute gastroenteritis, which we call as salmonellosis. Okay, and the incubation period about 6 to 72 hours with a mean of 1 day. So cases present abruptly, with nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramps, usually by watery diarrhea, but sometimes can be bloody, bloody mucoid. And most of them will be febrile, nalagnat nila. And when you get to do stool exam, it will show you moderate polymorphonucleoleucocytes and may even have cold blood. But most of the healthy children will recover spontaneously in 2 to 7 days. However, some patients would have a severe disease, and when you say severe disease, it won't present only as a diarrhea, but may even be sepsis-like, with high fever, headache, drowsiness, confusion, meningismal seizures, and abdominal distension. Tapos, yun, among these patients having non-typhoid salmonella infection, there could 1 to 5% can have transient bacteremia. 1 to 5%. And those at risk of severe disease, to include systemic disease, including bacteremia, will be on this table. First, neonates and infants less than 3 months old. So that matters a lot, no? When you're dealing with a case of non-typhoid salmonella in young infants less than 3 months old or younger, you be careful, no? They could have a more severe disease, including meningitis, yung may HIV, AIDS, those with other immunodeficiencies, malignancies, hemolytic disease, collagen vascular disease, inflammatory bowel disease, and malnutrition. Why am I pointing this all out to you? Because later in the treatment, I would mention that antibiotics is not routinely indicated unless patient is at risk for systemic disease or belongs to this group of patients. So, those who want to develop bacteria may have very minimal symptoms, particularly very young infants, but older children will have, other than diarrhea, can have fever, chills, and can even go into septic shock. And among the AIDS-defining conditions, those patients who want to have full-blown AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, it could present as recurrent septicemia. Okay? So following bacteremia, I said if 1 to 5% can go on following diarrhea can have bacteremia, especially if they're at risk for it. What do you call this? The bacteria get seeded to certain organs like the bones, the meninges, intravascular sites, and other sites of pre-existing abnormalities. Okay, so we see this mostly in my practice. I get to see a case once in a while among 3 months old and younger having diarrhea. So the peak of salmonella meningitis would actually among infants. Usually the story, they usually have diarrhea, acute diarrhea for a few days, and then they come and then go on to have present with signs of CNS manifestation. That's why I said be careful, when you are dealing with an infant 3 months old or younger having acute diarrhea and you happen to get salmonella, double check that the patient is not having extraintestinal complications. Okay, among patients with sickle cell disease, sa mga sickle cell, we don't have sickle cell in the Philippines, but yun nga, they're prone to osteomyelitis, mga adolescent females with HLA-B27, they can have what's called reactive arthritis. In reactive arthritis, the infection is elsewhere, it's not exactly in the joint, but they present with significant joint pains. Okay, clinical features are actually not specific to Salmonella gastritis, are not specific to Salmonella gastroenteritis, and so to establish the diagnosis, so the definite diagnosis of Salmonella is based on clinical correlation and of course identification of the Salmonella organisms from the stools or other body fluids. And so for treatment, like I said, particularly for salmonellosis, antibiotics are not routinely recommended for uncomplicated diarrhea. Why? Because the suprastomal flora prolong both excretion of salmonella and may increase the remote risk of chronic carrier state. But antimicrobials indeed is indicated for patients with increased risk of invasive disease. So I already mentioned this group of patients, who needs to be treated because they're at risk of invasive disease. But otherwise, kung hindi naman wala sila niyan, they don't belong to this group, the infection supposedly resolves spontaneously. And what antibiotics are given? This is in the Philippines we have, let's be familiar to this, document, provided by the Department of Health, the antimicrobial resistance surveillance program, no? And so ampicillin, historically ampicillin, no, was the first drug, no, to treat for typhoid salmonella, but napupo, no, but the resistance is already what, 8? Yeah, 16 or so. When is clinical resistance important? When resistance is about 15 to 20%. And more than 16% yata. So you really won't treat, if you're considering salmonella empirically, you know, that means when you're not culture guided yet, no, where you're not provided with susceptibility results yet, you won't use ampicillin. So usually what we give, no, is third generation cephalosporin, there's a traxone or ciprofloxacin. No? So ampicillin is allowed only if proven to be sensitive. So because of issues on resistance, nowadays, cases of non-typhoidal salmonella, if need to be treated, will have to be started on a third generation cephalosporin. So you remember the resistance pattern, we will compare to salmonella type in a while. Okay. So salmonella type is only, but all the rest will be non-typhoidal salmonella as against salmonella enterica serotype typhi. It's the one that's found among humans. Okay. And how does one get infected? Either by direct or indirect contact with the infected person. Then how does it get transmitted? Ingestion of water, food contaminated with human feces. So this requires a high inoculum, no, to cause disease. And because gastric acidity supposedly is protective, so you need a high inoculum for it to get across the stomach. No? So what factors that will enable the organism to reach the small intestine? Yan. Patients having acromegalia, the use of buffering medication, or those having rapid gastric emptying, rapid gastric, and as examples would be those who underwent gastrectomy or gastroenterostomy. You know, there in the Children's Hospital may mga GI patients na on peg feeding, gastroenterostomy. So they also are to be at risk, no? But also will be at risk for them for the salmonella typhi to get through the stomach, no, up to the small intestine. And for patients having large inoculum. So transmission is by direct fecal to oral. Direct fecal to oral spread is unusual. In children, except maybe among young children who usually expect to be very non-hygienic. Okay, so enteric fever, or what's called typhoid fever, so what's incubation period is around 10 to 14 days. The onset is insidious, something evolving slowly for several days, as fever, just myalgia, abdominal pain, hepatosplenomegaly, and even anorexia. So for after a few days of fever, child either may be having diarrhea after several days of fever, where stools are small